and that kind of stuff. Again, in terms of state of the nation, one is looking upon the church, because we are seeing a tentative turnaround where, like money is brought to them and they are saying, no, we are not going to accept this money. And of course, the question is, will this be spread all over, particularly the churches, and of course also the Muslims? Will this be spread throughout, so that there are some churches which say, we can still receive the money, and so will it be sustainable, stay for a long time, and at least if it does so, then a big plank of how Ruto got votes will be taken away from him, because now the church particularly will be more careful about availing its altars and spaces for purposes of self-serving politics. And so that can be a positive thing. I think we are still waiting for the middle class. We are waiting for the private sector. We are waiting for them to get involved in this struggle for a better Kenya, because sometimes they are ambivalent. They think that if you appear to contradict the state, then, the jobs you have, the contracts you have, the procurement you have, and, and you can be harassed and your business can be shut and stuff. But you see, when the issues are not correct, people will gradually continue suffering until even the business you had, you shut it down. You can't nurture it. The jobs, are getting lost and all that kind of stuff. So there has to be a reawakening, among the business class, that is the private sector, the middle class, itself, because when this, especially the middle class, when the middle class wakes up and says that we deserve better, then it becomes very, very, very difficult for any regime to continue doing things as they are. I talked about the reconstitution of the second generation of KANU. The first generation having been Kenyatta, those earlier people. And now, so when the president, when Ruto calls in Raila, is trying to, send overtures to Uhuru and his brother, and so when you get those people kind of coming together, first of all, it signifies that they feel danger, and the president or Ruto feels danger that the hold on power is slipping, and therefore he needs to socialize all these people and tell them that we'll lose all of us together. And so that's something to watch. And if it is not matched by the progressives also coming together, planning together, seeing how a manifesto of the Kenya we want there can be a draft, something Miguna General said some while back, during I think a conversation with March, and then when there's that draft, the convening of the Kenya we want, the people from every part of the country, like happened in 1997, and hopefully, by March next year, so that they see a picture of, okay, there are leaders they don't want. So which are the leaders who can come forward together and not think about, I'm going to be the president, I'm going to be this and that, because you don't have to, if you think that change is necessary, you play any part. And you don't have to be, those big things and stuff like that. I forgot to say, as I learned, the fact that Ruto Nirungu, the leader of Amnesty International here, could be roughed up, arrested, and so on. The message being sent is that there is no secret cow anymore. We can go for anybody. We can go for anybody, or even those people whom you call your leaders, the Omtatas, the Miguna, well, they have to come to Canada. You know, the Matas, the Mukisas, the Kigames, the name them. They can go for anybody. But fortunately, the youth are still working hard. Sometimes one might not know that they are, but I think they are doing their thing, and that's very positive. And so one thing that really must be worked on again is the political education, so that the ethnic stuff cannot be used anymore, the handouts cannot be used anymore. There is a resistance to state being used, so that money is taken from the state for, politics and all that kind of stuff. And so there is a lot of work, and the faster we realize that there is a lot of work, people who are in politics, progressive politics, the moment we realize that and stop solo stuff, then I think we'll be good to go. Please let me land.
Thank you so much, Prof. I want to bring back the Demta and Abdi, but before then, Honorable Neto, welcome. I see you. Let me hear the Demta, then Neto, you'll come in. The Demta.
Yes, the regrouping. I want to address the regrouping. Sorry, my thoughts were all over the place. I wanted to make one quote from this guy who had 85 million listen to his interview. He says, telling the truth seems crazy in a world full of liars. And the reason why I'm telling this story is because people who have been doing all manner of things in the last 30 years in Hollywood are being exposed. And it tells you, when you talk about the reign of Kanu, and that Kanu never really, it just regrouped, it's reinventing itself. It's an end of an era, and they are scared. And so the means they know how to use, they repel people by abducting them and killing them, are not working. And so I tell people, when I see groups in discussing about what we must do, the strategy that we must employ, that we cannot leave the people who are holding the torch. And these are the young people. Their torch was snapped. It's our responsibility to help them light it again. But there are people who are very intentionally trying to wrestle it away from their hands and saying, you cannot do it. A lot of people who fought for the second liberation, including Professor Kibudaya, Dr. Miguna, have to be very gracious to agree that the courage they felt those many years ago is now in the hands of some other people, the next generation. And you can't wrestle it away from them because they have the energy. Now they're coming back slowly and saying, we need the wisdom of the older generation. But I say we hold the brief for the young people when they say tribeless, leaderless, and partyless. And people are in a hurry to say, no, we cannot stay in this vacuum forever. We stay in that vacuum until we speak with one voice, which is they have grouped and regrouped. And so the masses and the people who hold the power are still going to be the majority, and they still have the right to win in this, because we're not fighting individuals. We are fighting a system that does not respect our constitution. Those are my submissions.
Thank you so much, that you are bringing about the groups. Yes, Honorable Neto.
No, but before you get to Honorable Neto,
yes.
Hillary.
Yes, Doctor.
I want to say something, and this is a mistake that has been made over the generations. The struggle against oppression is not generational. It's not about age. It's not about professional ability. It's not about the level of education. It's not about culture. It's not about tribe. It's not about where you live or where you work or what you do. It's an ideological struggle. If you don't get that, then we cannot succeed. It's an ideological struggle which has to be radical, which has to be progressive, and which has to aim to uproot a system. This system has no age group, has no generation. There are members of this regime who are 19 or younger, and they are Gen Zs who are supporting Ruto, who are with Ruto, who are fortifying Kanu. So let's not make mistakes of sectarianism. Let's not say that there is an age group that must carry the torch. We must carry this torch together. It cannot be females or males. It has to be both. It cannot be Gen Zs only. It has to be Gen Zote. The millenniums must be as active in this struggle as the Gen Zs. And eventually the Gen Zs will also become old. And they must continue to be in the struggle with the younger generation. So if we are going to make any meaningful progress in this struggle, we must stop sectarianism. We must stop this idea that there is an age that must lead. If you look at Bangladesh, it will show you that the only way the struggle succeeds is when all generations are involved. So I, for one, do not accept this myth that there is an age group that must carry the torch. Yes, the younger generation are younger, have more energy, have more to lose, but their fathers, their parents are also part of the struggle because their parents want them to succeed. But we all must succeed in this struggle. Age is not an ideology. Age is not an issue. Age does not mean anything. Because if it was just age and young means good, then Ruto would have been different from Moi. But he isn't. Thank you. And no, so sorry. Before I go, Mobutu, when he took power, when he killed Patrice Lumumba, was probably in his 20s or 30s. So we have to be very careful. It's not about age.
Yes, Hillary, I just want to cycle back to Professor Kibwana also. I think his analysis of the state of nation was well said. I think Kenya is truly facing a constitutional and institutional crisis that demand an urgent action. I think the IEBC, which remains unconstituted, actually raises a very, very important thing. The partial parliament and the captured parliament, the church, and all this. As one JF Kennedy said, the ignorance of one voter in democracy impairs the security of all. I think it's time for all Kenyans to rise above fear, reclaim our institutions, demand accountability. I think our collective inaction today could lead to the erosion of democracy and the loss of our future. I also want to say thank you to everyone joining. For those able not to get the mic, please share your comments and we'll ensure they are passed on to the panelists once again. We'll keep reading them on and off, and that's it. And on the other part also, I want to thank Dr. Miguna for outlining the critical failures of this regime, the looting, the plundering, the lack of vision. It's clear that corruption has become entrenched with no tangible strategy to address it. What we are witnessing is a system of governance that has failed. The question then becomes, how do we turn to take action? How do you build a structure that sustains momentum and hold these people accountable and ultimately facilitate a change? Thank you. Over to you, Hillary.
Thank you so much, Abdi. I see Honorable Ruben Kigame is also with us, as I welcome Honorable Neto. Neto, welcome on board, and thank you so much for joining again today.
Thank you very much, Hillary, and thank you for the time and to speak. It's an honor to speak after two distinguished seniors, Dr. Miguna and Professor Kibwana. I'll start by agreeing with a couple of things that both of them have said. And the first one is that this leadership has failed, and governments are instituted among men and women to ensure people have life, liberty, and pursue happiness. This particular regime has failed in every front. Our universities are failing. The healthcare system is gone. Kenya, that is an agricultural country, someone is fast-tracking the vaccination of cows that do not know for whose interest. We've also seen the fast-tracking of GMOs when we still don't have a problem with GMOs. I mean, we can produce our crops very organically. I do not know why someone is pushing for GMOs. We have pesticides that are making our exports are, toxic and denying us international markets. These are the sort of things that, this regime is supposed to be dealing with. And so the regime has basically failed. The second thing I'd like to do is to agree with Dr. Miguna that, you sometimes need allies. And there are a couple of allies, in a struggle, in a liberation struggle. Sometimes you need places where you can knock. And a couple of judges in the judiciary have remained true to the cause. Yes, there are many rotten ones, but I think there are a few good ones. And the best you want to do to your allies is to encourage them. Keep them going until this day when we see a particular Nunde. The third thing I'd like to see is, from someone like me who belongs to a green political party in Kenya, the amount of ecological degradation that we're watching in Kenya right now is unprecedented. People in Nairobi are suffering from, lung-related diseases because of dust, because of pollen, and for someone to want to hive off 51 acres of one of the only green spaces you have in Nairobi, it simply shows you that it's an administration. Especially so when when they came into office and they wanted to plant 15 billion trees. Now they're destroying the few billion trees that we have in the city in a way that is going to expose us to heat waves, going to expose us to lung problems. I really think that we must stop this for purposes of intergenerational equity. The third thing that I'd like to say is that, we should not, I think, get too worried. I think even the people around this regime know that the regime is not lasting for too long. If you see everyone else around this regime is planning to run for some office, one wants to be governor, the other wants to be senator, and these are people who are like the regime Minako. It simply shows you that even them from where they're sitting, they're knowing that things are not smooth. So we should not be too worried in terms of whether this regime is falling or when it's. We should only be worried about in terms of when it's falling. The fifth thing I'd like to talk about is the IEBC. I really think we must call out by name the people who are trying to also, pretending that they're progressives, but yet also aiding the work of authoritarian regime. I mean, we know who, for example, right now has been part of the problem in terms of the ABC thing. I think people really need to look at themselves in the mirror and really know if they're really fighting for Kenya in the way that we want. The constitutional amendment processes, we cannot allow it right now, especially under this regime. They have tortured with very interesting thoughts that if at all we allow them, and anyone who's thinking about a constitutional amendment right now is actually an enemy of the people. Because one, however you look at it, right now, this regime has a stranglehold in the Houses of Parliament. Even if you wanted to do a popular initiative, you need both the Houses of Parliament, you need the county assemblies. They have stranglehold all these people. So why would you even want to pretend that you have the numbers in the National Assembly and the Senate? We saw that the Senate and the National Assembly, thanks to 10 million shillings, laptop bag monies, they're able to vote anything. And so I think, like I agree with Professor Kibwana, that we should not and cannot entertain the thought of a constitutional amendment process. One of the things that Professor Kibwana said that I also want to address is the need for inviting the middle class to join this struggle. You cannot be sitting comfortable with a TV remote in your hands and thinking that this fight is not yours. The people who are paying for medical bills, thanks to a broken health system, is the middle class. The people who are paying for school fees for university graduates are middle class. Look at our young men and women being taken to modern slavery in the Middle East in the name of I don't know what. How do you have a regime who educates, which government has a philosophy to perpetuate labor flight, that the cabinet secretary has the audacity to pose for a picture with young men and women going to hinterland to do many jobs, people who we've trained with our own money. I really think that we must call into the middle class to stop playing. When a society is extractive, it's extractive for everyone else. I'd like to land by saying that where Kenya is right now, we're at a good moment. I think we're at the moment where the nation is beckoning us for change. We are at what Winston would call the finest hour. We're only waiting for this particular person who can give the lion roar. And I really think that noonday is soon coming, and we're soon going to watch a good daybreak. Ireland, thanks, Hilary.
Thanks so much, Honorable. Dr. you want to come in, or I give to somebody?
I wanted to say something quickly, Hilary.
Okay.
I think let us not be delusional about William Ruto's intentions. it is very clear, and I can confirm this from reliable sources, that William Ruto has no intention of having IEBC in place anytime soon. And what you're seeing are just mind games and reverse psychology. The other thing I want to say, and I've actually reason to believe the sources that I'm getting, is that there is a scheme by William Ruto to remove the Chief Justice, because even though she still has her weaknesses, she has been awakened by her past history fighting for social justice. And right now what is going on, and I dare say without fear of contradiction, is that they want to remove her so that Philomena Mwilu takes over. And Philomena Mwilu is the weakest link in the judiciary. And that is what William Ruto is pushing for. William Ruto has no intention of having IEBC. He is not keen on having elections in 2027, and everything is being done to make sure that we do not have elections in 2027. And that is why, for me, the state of the nation right now, we should be talking about how to get Kenyans out on the streets in a way that will remove William Ruto and every member of the current political class out of office today, not tomorrow, because the longer they stay, the longer they are getting time to strategize on how to continue oppressing the people. That is the sad reality that we must face, and we need not sugarcoat it anymore. We need to call them out, because if you believe in Christian values, you must call sin by its name. And right now, let us not hide, including even the people who are coming out and saying they are running for office. Some of them are William Ruto projects, so that they can distract public attention and pressure from what they are doing, so that they have time to plot their evil schemes against the people.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Thank you so much for saying that. I want to welcome Josephine, then Anna, I see you, then Hannah, then I'll go back again. Those people are requesting mic. Please bear with us, and also you can share your questions on the chat there, and Abdi will read them. Josephine, 2 minutes or 3 minutes, please.
Thank you so much, Hilary, and Redemptor, and Abdul. I recognize the presence of Dr. Remington, Professor Kibwana, and Dr. Miguna, and the fellow Kenyans, wherever you are. I salute you, everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, as per your timelines. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Yes, this is what I have to say about the state of the nation. Right now, as Dr. Miguna has just made it, actually we do not have a government. Reason being, right now, there are no priorities of what even is being done, and nobody cares. For me to just give us something brief that happened today, it was a shock to me today. At around 1, a Christian calls me a parent calls me from home, from the church, and she's asking me, kuna immunization inapeana wabana mtoto wangu amepewa dawa bila mimi kujua na bila kuwa consulted. How would somebody dare do that? You just go start feeding people's children with drugs, regardless whether they are good or bad, without caring, without sense of proper communication, for people to have proper communication. Personally, I work in an hospital. The whole of last week, I was on duty. There's no way that somebody would say that it has been communicated and I'm not aware. Fellow Kenyans, the earlier we wake up, the better, because there's a lot that's happening in our country. Right now, as we are talking, you see, whatever Master School was saying that yesterday, that people, we have to go out. Is it our responsibility to go and arrest who is doing what, who has been brought for their own mistakes? Fellow Kenyans, my stand is very, very simple. Ruto must go, and not yesterday, but today. As also the government, the MPs that we have in office, Actually, we have also discovered some of the judicial teams, they are not even for the Wananchi. They are really out to fight us and to bring us down. And I'm calling upon each and every Kenyan. Can we join up our hands? Because Ruto is not even ready for elections. I'm repeating that. Dr. Milton has just said it, and I'm repeating it. He has been saying it repeatedly. If you have heard him address people recently, he was saying by the time we get to 2035, that we will be having no slums in the country. So he doesn't have a plan of living office neither. And that's why we can see him bringing Ruto Laila, bringing in Uhuru. But one thing I want to say, as Akileta Nani, he should go. And we should never stop pushing him to move out. Can we stand firm? Can we also take control of the government? Because we have the power, we have the capacity, and we can do that. We can even start writing whatever we think they're supposed to do as a nation, what is not being done. And that will help them, us push them out. Because whenever we write it down, we give it to them, they adopt it, we push them out because it's not their idea. They didn't have an idea. It's us who are giving them the ideas to what to do. And the moment they adopt it, we tell them, you don't know what you're supposed to do, get out. Give us a room in our country so that we can be ruled the way we want to be ruled. Fellow Kenyans, let's stand firm. Let's continue calling each and everything that which is not good in our nation. Let's continue calling the Ministry of Health, the CFL, actually to come out clearly and tell us what is she really doing about our health. We are still contributing money and nothing is happening. Our people are dying and nobody talks about it. Now we are actually being told our cattle are going to be vaccinated. What kind of disease that is going to be vaccinated to our animals, and what will be the long-term effect kwa mwananchi ambaye ata consume that meat? Why did they vaccinate in their own countries? Why should they bring it in our country? Fellow Kenyans, I think we've been having a lot, and in our country we have lived in peace, and we didn't have all these things. Ruto is trying to bring them to us. He's trying to confuse us in different ways, and we have to stand and say no to this type of confusion. The other thing is that any church that is receiving monies from the president, I'm just landing. Any church that is collecting money from the president, knowing that it's money of people's blood, can we also occupy that church and let them know that they are not going to visit on the blood of the Kenyans who have been dying, fighting for justice? Somebody saying that is a sacrifice. A sacrifice is not announced in the church. Sadaka haitangazwi. Kwa hivyo kama inaenda kutangazwa, we need to occupy that church and clear them out. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. Fellow Kenyans, let's stand and defend our motherland. Kenya ni nchi yangu, ninaipenda, and I love you all. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Josephine. Before we go to Joshua Okayo and then Professor and then to Papa Ruben. So I will just be very quick. If you're given time, please stick to 2 minutes. I'll read a few comments online. Ndolo says we should not to Professor Kibwana, we should not entertain any call for Constitution of Kenya 2010 to be amended. The current DOK is not for the Constitution. The other one says on IABC, our goose is cooked. The people like Kalonzo are the parties to Ruto. Scheme Kalonzo is a real watermelon. If we are not quick, we'll lose through this back and forth shenanigan. ABC is the vector here. Thank you for all your comments. We'll keep reading. And having said that, I think there was the speakers had a powerful insight and reflection. The issues raised tonight reach from unbearable cost of living to the crumbling states of our institution, from youth unemployment that Neto talked about, the insecurity plaguing our communities, paint a green but a truthful picture of where we are as a nation. I think I want to emphasize that we are justified in our frustration and anger. This space must also serve as a platform for solution and way forward. The challenges we face are immense. They are not insurmountable. Kenya history has shown us when we come together, we can overcome the most daunting obstacle. So let's focus our energies to unite our voices, organize a meaningful change, start from here with each other, committing to a push for justice. Thank you, and over to you, Joshua.
Joshua Okayo, you have a mic.
I hope you can hear me.
Right, we can hear you very well.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. And of course, to those of us who are not within the country, good morning, good afternoon. My name is Joshua Okayo, and I'm happy to be here. I'm always happy to be in these spaces to, continue the discourse on the state of the nation and, of course, way forward. We cannot just be discussing the state of the nation. We also need to bring our heads together to try and think for the 56 million Kenyans who are very hopeful for a change, for a new Kenya, for a better Kenya. And I can tell you they are not looking at anyone else but you and I who are in these spaces. So really, we have to speak, we have to think, we have to bring our heads together to find solutions. As we speak, and mostly I speak for the young people because I'm a young person. We've said this war is not a generational war. This war is for everybody. This war is for baby boomers, for Gen X, Gen Alpha, Gen Z. And I'm happy to state that I'm Gen Z. So it's also important to celebrate our diversities, even as we use those diversities to pursue a common goal or a common cause. As we speak, I just finished my examination at the Kenya School of Law. And I have been doing interviews here and there in law firms. I have gone to quite a number of law firms, but 4 specific law firms, not small law firms really. I have been told that I am a threat and that I cannot be considered for pupillage position because most of the briefs these firms do are for the government, and that me being part of their teams is a threat to the briefs that the government gives these firms. That is a state of the nation, because I believe I represent quite many other young people who are probably looking for opportunities here and there, but they cannot get because they have involved themselves in fighting for good governance. And the government in place, and I'm sorry, not the government really, these cabals, these money-thirsty, bloody people are profiling the young people who are fighting for good governance. They don't appreciate that. They don't accept that they are actually wrong and they have failed in every move they've made in this nation. And so that profiling has led to even potential employers to stay at bay because they do not want to engage with the young people who've been seen to be active citizens. That is the state of the nation. And that's why there are people, some of us, who would probably prefer to look for any menial job abroad just so that they get a chance to get out of this country. There are those that have not been very active citizens, but they're just frustrated because there are no jobs. About 5,000 students graduated from the University of Nairobi on Friday last week. The same day we had so many students graduating from KU, Kenyatta University. And the Friday before last Friday, we had quite a number of students graduating from Cooperative University and other universities. You can imagine all these people are frustrated and they want to get hold of something, but they can't. Because number one, their government has not created an opportunity, an environment for them to get jobs, or an enabling environment for them to be able to create something for themselves. At the end of the day, not all of us can create jobs for ourselves. Some of us must get into employment. But then the environment is not appealing, is not welcoming. As we speak, we have young people who the state is engaging to give them information. We have people who are shouting Ruto must go. But in real sense, they don't believe in Ruto must go. And they don't mean Ruto must go. But they are being used, so they camouflage as if they are part of the movement, as if they support the movement and that they're fighting for good governance, just so they get a space in the movement. They get to tables with the people who are in one way or another trying to do 1, 2, 3 things to keep the conversations going. So that then they get information and leak it out there. That is what is happening. We have young people who are being used by other politicians, because we have quite a number of politicians. They're not just Ruto only and his government. We have other politicians who are taking advantage of the movement, approaching young people, the young people that they've seen to be active and to be able to command a certain number, to command some following. They try to bribe them. They try to show them some bait so that these guys feel this is the home. This is where to be. This is where I can flourish. And of course, someone like me, I'm not saying me, but I'm saying someone of my age or someone who's just starting their career. If they get somewhere, a comfortable, quote unquote, home, where their needs will be catered for, and where they'll get transport, they'll get security for free, and they'll be housed, they'll probably consider that and forget about the importance of the bigger picture. They'll forget about the freedom that we all want and that we all are fighting for. And so my prayer tonight and every day is that at least a majority of us stick to the cause. At least a majority of us stay open-eyed, so that we get to see and get to understand the reason why we are fighting, the reason why every day we are in these spaces trying to curate ideas as to how to move forward, the reason as to why so many of us were killed on the streets, the reason as to why some of us were kidnapped and abducted, and some were tortured, some were injured, some were maimed, and not just this year, and even years before. I mean, we have people who fought before. This is not the first time people fought. And this has always been an agitation for good governance, an agitation for leaders that are supposed to, to hold those positions. I pray and hope that we don't lose sight of that. We don't lose sight of the many people who fell along the way as we tried to secure our freedom. That the wish they had, because they wished for good governance, they wished for change, they wanted Ruto to go. They wanted to abolish all these punitive laws and bills. I pray and hope that their prayer and their wishes that they had then, and that I believe they still hold in their wherever they were buried, that we shall fulfill those dreams, that we shall fulfill those hopes and wishes. I pray and hope. So that is it. Now, how do we move forward? There are also distractors who are coming up with quite a number of conversations, and I think Dr. Miguna touched on people calling out, I think the CJ, Martha Koome, and other judges of the Supreme Court. We cannot trust them. We cannot believe them. Because why now? Why should it be the conversation when the bigger conversation that everyone in Kenya is talking about is Ruto to go, and not to wait for 2027? Because we have established, it is indisputable, that honestly it is not going to be easy for us to have an IEBC. But if we shall have it, it is going to lack the I. It won't be an independent body. It will be a body dependent on the executive. It will be a body being fed by an individual at the executive. So then, if we cannot have an IEBC, or if we cannot have an independent IEBC, what do? We have to ensure that this man goes. And that we have to do with utmost urgency. Because should we wait up to 2027, we are going to get to a dead end. We are not, it's not going to be easy. This is the time. We are already having conversations amongst ourselves, especially the young leaders in different spaces, those that are fighting for different, things, social justice, those human rights defenders, and everyone else. We are trying to just synergize so that then we can bring all these energies and all these efforts together. I can tell you, I am very open to conversations. We've been conversing with all these young faces you can see. I don't want to mention names, but we are talking. Because my hope is that the young people, just as you, the old generation, can come together. And it is not going to be easy for us to come together if the different generations, the different diversities are still not together. So why should we not, or why can we not, bring the generations together? And then now we form a bigger group. And there are things that we can do. The young people, I can say it plainly, we don't have resources. Those of us that have are probably 1 or 2%, but we do not have resources. But some of us have the energy. Some of us have the will. Some of us, we have the urge to continue fighting.